Good morning and welcome to Face the Nation. I'm John Dickerson. New CBS Battleground tracker polls in Wisconsin show a tight race on both sides. Bernie Sanders is ahead of Hillary Clinton by 2 points, 49 to 47. And among Republican primary voters, Ted Cruz leads Donald Trump by 6 points, 43 to 37, with John Kasich far behind. But Trump is up by large margins in both New York, which holds its primary on April 19th, and Pennsylvania, where the primary is on April 26th. Now we turn to CBS News Director of Elections, Anthony Salvanto, for more on our CBS News Battleground tracker poll. Anthony, let's start in Wisconsin. Donald Trump is behind Ted Cruz there. How big a deal is that? What does it tell us?
Well, Wisconsin's really tailor-made for someone like Ted Cruz. His strength all along has been he does very well with the very conservative. And that's what most Republicans in Wisconsin say that they are. They say they're looking for the most consistent conservative in this race. So in that respect, it's a very important, maybe even a must-win for Cruz. But you put Wisconsin in context now. As we head into April, we turn to states like New York, like Pennsylvania. Ted Cruz is not going to find quite as receptive an audience, so he does really need to make hay in Wisconsin if he's going to hope to derail Trump a little bit.
So those who've been looking at Wisconsin as a test of whether Donald Trump's bad week is going to send a signal about his overall health might be overreading things?
His overall health at this point is stable, maybe not exactly where a frontrunner wants to be. And that's because his supporters say, and they admit in the polls, that sometimes they think he goes too far in what he does and what he says. And that's a little bit extraordinary. We don't often find supporters of a candidate who are willing to say that about their chosen candidate. They're with him anyway. So that's baked into the cake. Now, for those who are on the fence about Donald Trump, that may be limiting his growth a little bit because they're the ones who are more likely, when they think he goes too far, not to be persuaded to maybe come over to his side.
And based on who's supporting Donald Trump on this back and forth on abortion, do you think that actually matters much in terms of who's already supporting Trump or Cruz?
Not a lot, because the people who are most strongly pro-life were not with him anyway. They were voting for Ted Cruz.
Right. All right, let's step back a second and talk about the delegate math here. Let's imagine for a moment that Ted Cruz wins Wisconsin. That's 42 delegates. How much does that change things for Donald Trump?
It pushes him off course a little bit. It really puts the pressure on him to run the table in New York and some of those Atlantic states coming up towards the end of April. So in all of these states, in most of these states, the delegates are given out by district. So in New York, Ted Cruz would have to go in. He'll be going into hostile territory, looking for pockets of friendly territory where he can pick up a few delegates. Trump will be having to try to really run up the score there in those states to make maybe 60, 2/3 of the delegates along the way to get back. Look, I think, John, this will all be decided in one of two places. It will be decided in California in June, the last big primary, or we're going to Cleveland, and it'll be decided there.
And so what you mean there is either Trump will get to the magic number of 1,237 by however many delegates he gets in California, or he will fall short of that and everybody will head to Cleveland, nobody will have the majority, and it'll be a contested convention. If that's the case, that second idea, open convention, is that why Donald Trump's conversation about Louisiana and these backroom efforts to secure the delegates, is that why that's so important?
Yes, that is why that is so important. And here's what happens. When we watch on election night, somebody wins a state. We say they're going to get X number of delegates. Those are delegate slots. Now, who actually fills those slots? Who packs their bags and heads to Cleveland, right? That process goes on in the states, at the counties, at the state party conventions. Now, each of the campaigns would love to have their loyalists filling those slots, because what will happen is, if this does become an open convention, after that first ballot, where most of the delegates are bound to vote for whichever candidate won those slots, now they're going to start arguing and brokering. Now they can do, most of them, whatever they choose. So you want your loyalists to fill those slots. It's like, it's like when you get that +1 and guest invite to a ball. You can go with, you can take somebody who just wants to go, or somebody who really likes you. And they want somebody who really likes them, and then we'll go fight for them in Cleveland.
And then we have about 30 seconds, Anthony. If there is this fight in Cleveland, how divided is the party at this moment? Just to give us a sense of tempers and where they'll be if there's a big fight in Cleveland.
The polls show that the supporters of Ted Cruz would be upset if Donald Trump would get the nomination, and that Donald Trump supporters would be upset if anyone else gets the nomination. So yes, they are somewhat divided. You know, Trump is saying, well, he's brought a lot of new voters to the process. That does seem to be the case. A lot of his voters say they're interested in this because of Donald Trump. So the balancing act then is not to try to alienate those voters, but also play the ones who would be upset if it is Trump.
That's right, and we saw Chairman Reince Priebus trying to hold off that balancing act today. Anthony, thanks so much for being with us.